Before I get too far into this, I'm doing this video because there's so much um, activity with uh, protests and rallies and counter protests and riots and those kind of things that are taking place. So this is kind of a tutorial for anyone who thinks they or want to go and participate or observe or whatever those kinds of events. Uh, the first rule will be keep your hands to yourself. Regardless of what position you take, you keep your hands to yourself. Uh, so the next thing, and I'm not an attorney, but I've been through a whole lot of training on the use of deadly force and the use of force. And so I'm going to give you a definition that you can use, and I don't think any attorney will disagree. And it is, if you are faced with the unavoidable, imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death to yourself or an innocent, you may use deadly force or the force necessary to stop that threat. So, if you think about that, one, and you're a civilian, you're not a cop, your duty is never to run to gunfire. That's not your duty. It's not your job. Your job is not to apprehend anyone. And so for you internet armchair warriors who are going to now say, well, there's such a thing as citizen's arrest, my counsel on that is, well, if you feel froggy, jump, right? Because as far as the person you're trying to arrest is concerned, you are a threat to them, and they will use deadly force to stop you because they don't know who you are, and you're certainly not a cop. And the only way you can successfully do a citizen's arrest is either you have greater force, probably a firearm, or greater numbers. That's a bunch of people. But if the other person is dangered up and armed, some of y'all are gonna get hurt and or die. So my suggestion is don't try to do the citizen's arrest silliness. Now let's come back to the threat. Inside of all that comes back to keep your hands to yourself. You cannot chase anyone because you think they have done something or might do something. You cannot give chase because as soon as you give chase to someone, you are a threat to them. Why? They don't know who you are, and you're certainly not a cop. So that's the other part. And there's a lot of people that think they want to be heroes in silliness like that, and they want to go run after somebody because they think they saw something or they saw something. Let's say that you saw somebody shoot someone. One, you have no idea why they did that, and now you're going to give chase. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because that will get you dead. You can be a good witness. You can call 911, assuming that anyone's going to answer, and if they do answer, that anyone's going to show up, right? You can only act when you see an immediate threat taking place, not what you think might be happening or not what you think might have happened, right? I'll give you an example. The the guy that flagged down a pickup truck when a guy had done a mass shooting in a church in Texas outside of San Antonio. He got his AR, jumps in a pickup, doesn't know the driver, and they give chase. They give chase. Now, one, this guy had just killed a bunch of people. They saw him kill a bunch of people. And they made the determination that he was going to kill more people somewhere. And they made the decision to chase after him. They knew that if the guy returned fire or fired on them, he was not an innocent because they saw what he did. That is totally different. That is a totally different scenario. So let's come back to, being in public and you're in a rally or a protest or whatever. Um, you cannot chase someone. You cannot chase them down. There's no such thing as fighting words. So if you don't like what somebody has said to you, you can't pop off and try to give them an educational beatdown. I mean, you might want to do that, but the consequence will be, if they are dangered up, you're going to end up dead because they are going to use force, the necessary force, to stop you from hurting them. Now, what is that? I said this before. Okay, there are three conditions to be met before deadly force can be used. One, does the threat or perceived threat have the ability to deliver serious bodily injury or death? Yes or no? If it's yes, you got one check mark. Do they have the opportunity to deliver that ability, serious bodily injury or death to you? The answer is yes. That's two. The third has to do with imminent. Imminent means it's about to happen to you or it's about to happen to another person right now. Not 5 minutes from now, right now. Right? And that's based on what you are seeing right now. Now, if those things happen, then you can use deadly force. The reverse is true. The other person can use deadly force on you. Okay? If you show up with a skateboard and want to try to hit anyone in the head with it, and they pull a gun, you lose. And you know what? It's a righteous shoot. If you show up with cement and a sock and you're swinging it around and you're trying to hit somebody in the head with it and they pull a gun and shoot you, you lose. And you should, because they're trying to stop the threat. So if you go to one of these rallies or protests with instrumentation that you only will carry if you intend to start a fight. Just because somebody has a firearm, by the way, and they're walking around with an AR, absolutely doesn't mean they're there to start a fight. They're certainly there to protect themselves and maybe the innocent. But if you show up with shields and masks and sticks, you're not there to do anything. You're not there to defend yourself. You're there to make someone fight you. You're the same person that will stand in front of the cops when they're at hats and bats, or maybe they're not, and try to provoke them to use force on you. Try to provoke them. That's stupid. But you're trying to get that money shot. You're trying to get that money video that's going to get 1 million hits. Right? That's why you're there. You want there to be a violent confrontation, so therefore you're going to start it. Now, when you're dealing with the cops, that's one thing. When you're doing that to another civilian and you're trying to provoke them, most of the time, especially if they're dangered up like I am most of the time, they're not going to engage you. Now, what's that going to mean? That means you're going to have to be like a little dog and start chasing after them with the thing in your hand that signals to them that you are there to fight them. And then as soon as you try to use it, they're going to shoot you in the face. And it'll be a righteous shoot, because you shouldn't be doing that in the first place. You should be keeping your hands to yourself. Now, there's some other components. One is called disparity of force. Big against small, male against female, many against one. If you have a bunch of guys chasing one guy and the one guy turns around and lights you up, he can continue to light you up until there's only one left. Lesson learned. Do not have a bunch of guys chasing someone who is obviously dangered up. That's like asking for suicide. Whatever the reason. Right? So the disparity of force thing really matters. Okay? Um, Now, apply this to the next time you think you want to go and march or protest slash rally, whatever you're going to do. If you are bringing stuff that is only intended for if you're going to engage in combat, carrying a firearm is a constitutional right. And most people that I know do not go with the intent of using it first. Why is that? Because if you raise your barrel, pistol or long gun, at someone who is unarmed and they are not attacking you, that is called, at a minimum, brandishing. And if you shoot them, that is attempted murder. So it is highly unlikely that anyone who is armed at one of these events is going to raise their muzzle, raise their barrel at you, right? You would have to threaten them before that happens. Because the first one that raises the muzzle loses, unless there is unavoidable, imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death to them or an innocent. Another example. They're standing guard in front of a store or whatever business, and there's somebody in the building. And you come up with a Molotov cocktail that you intend to throw through the window into the building. Well, first of all, that's a felony. Second of all, that's attempted murder, and they have the right to shoot you in the face before the Molotov cocktail leaves your hand. So if you bring stuff like that, then you're stupid. You are asking to be killed. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what's starting to happen out there in the public square. Folks are showing up. They're showing up with the intent to provoke violence, not defend against it. And they're starting to get hurt as a result. So I'm going to end this with the caution. If you're going to go out in public and you're going to participate in these things, keep your hands to yourself. So, as always, thanks for watching. Carry on.